I don't think I've ever done that.
Really?
Weirdo. No.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SkyePod brought to you by Holy Post Media. I am Skye Jitani. Joining me this week for our monthly Drew's News episode is Drew Dick. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Skye. Good to be back.
I think we can officially announce this now. We're not going to announce all of it, but I am really excited to tell everybody that you are officially joining the Holy Post Media team.
Yes. In a certain capacity.
Yes.
But I'm so excited. Yes.
Right. We only want you in a certain capacity.
You couldn't take all of me.
No, who can? Who possibly could?
Not even my wife.
Yeah, so you are going to be joining our editorial team, and we have some projects you're going to be working on with us that we will be announcing in the coming weeks. But you've been informally a part of the team for a while because you've contributed to a lot of the podcasts over the years. You're going to remain out in Portland. Unfortunately, we can't have you here. We just got Caitlin to move here.
I know,
we're slowly,
you got Caitlin there.
We're slowly drawing all, pro-Christian, pro-neighbor people to ourselves. But you're going to stay out there, but you're going to be contributing to some of the stuff we're doing, especially some written content that we're working on. So, but your fingerprints may well show up in other places. But welcome to the team. We're really excited to have you.
Thank
as
you.
Part of us.
To commemorate the event, for anyone watching the video, I am sipping water from my Holy Post Media Yeti tumbler.
There you
today.
go. So all the cool kids have them.
Quite a flex. Yep.
Very much a flex. Bunch of other stuff's happening around here at Holy Post Media. For those of you who are Holy Post Plus subscribers, you know that I'm writing my new book as a serial, releasing one chapter a month. We just released chapter 3. I am scrambling to get chapter 4 done because I'm leaving the country shortly and I need to get it done before I head out. But that's a fun project. It's a new way for me to write a book. We're interacting with people. We're doing a live stream every month with people about the chapter. So go to Holy Post to learn more about that project. Of course, we have all of our other big stuff over at Holy Post Plus. I want to address one other thing before we jump into the Drew's News content, though, Drew, because I know some people subscribe and listen to the SkyePod through their regular podcast platforms, whatever, and they get like jaded and a little shocked when they're about halfway through this episode and it stops. And my voice pops in and says, hey, the rest of the episode is exclusively for Holy Post Plus subscribers. And people are like, why are you doing that? And that's mean. And why can't I get the whole episode? Okay, couple things. Number one, this show, as people may or may not have noticed, has no ads on it. We don't sell advertising on the SkyePod because it's part way behind the paywall for Holy Post Plus subscribers. So there's a plus. You don't get any ads for shirts or dietary supplements or counseling. But the other reason is we support Holy Post Media largely through our Holy Post Plus subscribers. So we've been trying to experiment with different ways to draw people into the Holy Post Plus subscriber network. And so originally the SkyePod was kind of an experiment. I got the idea by listening to Andrew Sullivan's podcast, The Dishcast. Have you ever listened to that, Drew?
Yeah.
Brilliant podcast. He interviews long form interviews of really fascinating people. And he does that kind of same thing where partway through the podcast, it fades out and then Andrew Sullivan pops in and says, hey, if you're a subscriber for whatever it is a year for his show, then you get the full thing. And I kept bumping into that and realized this is kind of a smart model. We should experiment with that and try it. So that's what we have tried with SkyePod. And I'm really grateful for a lot of you who have become Holy Post Plus subscribers. The difference, though, is apart from the Dishcast, like Andrew Sullivan, is when you become a Holy Post Plus subscriber, you don't only get full episodes of the SkyePod. You get everything we're creating over at Holy Post Plus, which is a bunch of other podcasts and shows, video content, my new book, live streams, merchandise, like all of that stuff. So
rewards in heaven.
Right, exactly. So it's a way not only to support the work we're doing and the content we're creating, but also resourcing yourself with all kinds of great stuff. But that's why we're doing it this way. So I know some of you are like, oh, I wish I could share this whole episode with my friends. Also preview, like we are working on potentially a new system for Holy Post Plus that will build in more of those capabilities and make it more user-friendly. So all that's in the works. Thank you for your patience on it. And thank you for those of you who are Holy Post Plus subscribers, because it allows us to hire people like Drew to do great content. So, and he's got young children and a dog to feed. So
a big growing dog.
That's right. You should tell everybody what you named your puppy.
Okay, well, he is a white golden retriever, and he was like the biggest one in the litter. So we knew he was going to be a monster. And so I thought, okay, he's white and he's going to be big. I should name him after the whale, Moby Dick. And then it hit me. My last name is Dick. It is perfect. Moby Dick is the dog.
Your dog is Moby Dick. I hope your fate is not the same as Ahab's.
Yeah, right. So far, it's pretty close.
All right, Drew. So you've brought to us a whole slate of stories to talk about for this edition of Drew's News. What do you want to start with?
Let's jump into it. This one has everyone talking online this week. CNN ran a segment on Pastor Douglas Wilson. He is, this was the title, the Christian Nationalist pastor with ties to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And it's about a 6 or 7 minute segment. If you haven't seen it, Douglas Wilson is an interesting guy. He's been around for a while, as you know, Skye. I think he came on my radar back when we were at Christianity Today, I think. Mm-hmm. And back then, I remember he was like doing debates with Christopher Hitchens and debating students on college campuses. But he is, and I think he would own this label, a Christian nationalist.
Oh, yeah.
And like the segment points out, his influence has been growing. He's also looking a lot like Santa Claus these days. He's got a big belly and a white beard. So that's a side note.
Well, that's not too hard to pull off.
No, that's right. I'm on my way myself.
It's not like you have to work hard to,
well, I mean,
put on the pounds and grow the hair out. You basically do nothing and those things happen, at least for me.
Years of overeating.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so the connection to Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that. But apparently Doug Wilson, he's in Moscow, Idaho, and leads this network of churches, which are now stretching internationally. And they recently planted a new church in Washington, D.C. that some influential people are part of, including Pete Hegseth. Part of the controversy recently was Pete Hegseth retweeted or reposted a tweet from Doug Wilson, basically saying that women should not have the right to vote.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, when I saw this segment and they were playing up the connection to Pete Hegseth, which isn't like an official connection organizationally to Doug Wilson, but I thought, oh man.
He's a member of the church.
Well, yeah, okay, so I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now, I thought, oh man, Pete Hegseth is probably going to want to distance himself from this guy, could bring some heat on him. No, he shared the segment, Pete Hegseth did, on X, and with he like retweeted it or whatever you call it now, and then he said all of Christ for all of life, and shared the segment. Mm-hmm. So he is absolutely, it seems, 100% on board with Doug Wilson's Christian nationalism.
Right. Now, okay, there's many ways to skin this cat. I want to begin by talking about his particular form of Christian nationalism, and there's in that segment we can split in two parts. Why it's in my estimation, and I think many others, profoundly un-American.
Yeah. And
then why it's problematic as Christianity.
Right.
So on the un-American side, I mean, I already mentioned Doug Wilson doesn't think women should be allowed to vote. He strictly speaking does not believe in democracy. And he says this in the CNN interview. Democracy, the word democracy means rule of the people. He believes in theocracy. He believes that America, and in fact, every country, should be ruled by a theocratic system that puts Christianity at the top. Okay, so he doesn't believe in democracy. He doesn't believe in one person, one vote. He doesn't believe in equal rights for women. He does not believe in the abolition of slavery.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I don't know his broader views on that, but
he's written extensively about it.
Yeah, right. There's a book called Black and Tan, I believe, where he shares some really disturbing views. And yeah, in the segment, it's like, he's kind of like, yeah, I'm glad slavery's gone. He said
he's glad that chattel-based slavery as practiced in the United States is gone, because chattel-based slavery is not biblical. But he would argue slavery in and of itself is biblical.
Right. And it's just that it was executed by fallen human beings, and
Right.
they didn't do it right. So it's like, are you kidding? And then of course he plays up the supposedly warm connection that masters and slaves had with each other. Yeah. So crazy stuff.
So I mean, going down the list now of how these things are un-American. He doesn't believe in democracy. He does not believe in one person, one vote. He does not believe in equal rights for women. He does not believe in the abolition of slavery. He does not believe in the Constitution because he doesn't believe in the First Amendment and the separation of church and state. He does not believe in pluralism, that people of diverse faiths and beliefs should have equal rights under the law. So on all those fronts, and probably 10 more, this is a profoundly un-American view to have. Now, I find it let's take faith out of it for a moment. I find it deeply problematic that the Secretary of Defense is retweeting and endorsing the beliefs of somebody who does not believe in the most essential qualifications of American leadership. Like, you might give biblical arguments for not believing in the Constitution, but I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be in charge of the military of the United States or in the executive branch of government or an elected official of the country if you don't believe in the Constitution that gives you the authority to do your office. Like, that's weird. That is very, very weird.
A little unsettling.
Very. Then on the Christian side of things, Doug Wilson has this view that essentially Old Testament law ought to be put in place in modern society. And I think that's just a bad reading of Scripture.
Right.
And a misunderstanding of what Jesus came to create. I don't believe he came to create nation states. So anyway, that could go on. I want to ask you this though, Drew. Why do they make a big point in the CNN piece of that his popularity is growing, his movement is growing, and not just Christian nationalism, but the particular form of Christian nationalism that Doug Wilson represents. Why do you think it's so appealing right now to so many people?
Yeah. And I should say too, from what I understand, specifically why it's appealing to so many dudes. All right. There are a lot of guys that they're even moving to Moscow, Idaho to kind of join the network and build the kingdom, as it were. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a loss of cultural power that some Christians feel. And then this is sort of a radical response to that, and it resonates with a lot of people. Like the one quote he had in the interview, he says, "I'd like to see the town be a Christian town. I'd like to see the state be a Christian state. I'd like to see the country be a Christian country. I'd like to see the world be a Christian world." So it's this kind of grand vision of a Christian takeover. The other thing too, eschatological element to this that is mentioned in the CNN thing is that he sees this as sort of precipitating the second coming of Christ, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. That they're gonna usher it in some way, which is another very dangerous approach, I think, on the Christian side of the equation, right? Because man, when you adopt that stance, it's like, okay, it's on me to establish the kingdom, to build the kingdom, to even bring in the second coming of Christ. That's dangerous. I remember being in seminary. One of my professors, Eddie Gibbs, said to the class, he said, "If you're here because you want to build the kingdom, I have bad news for you. The kingdom's already built. It's already built, man. We're supposed to herald its arrival." And I think when it seems like a subtle shift, but when you go from I'm going to build and establish the kingdom, or if you say I'm not going to be just a herald of the kingdom, I'm going to build and establish it.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, anything you do to achieve that is justified, right? Because it's all on your shoulders, to bring the kingdom about, and that gets really, really scary.
What strikes me is it sounds very post-millennial. And okay, so I know there's folks who don't know this language, but for most of our lives, especially in the American evangelical subculture, it's been dominated by a theological belief known as premillennialism. Premillennialism essentially says the world is going to deteriorate and become more and more corrupted and unjust and unchristian. And as things get worse and worse, and as Christians become more and more persecuted in the world, then Jesus will return and wipe out his enemies and establish his reign on earth. That's premillennialism. So it basically anticipates the decline of civilization and Christian values. Postmillennialism, which was a belief that was held for a long time in a lot of parts of the Western church, postmillennialism said that Christians in the world and the church in the world will grow and convert more and more of the world to Christianity, create more and more just systems, more and more Christian institutions as they take over all the levers of power in the world. And essentially, we will, through the church, establish the kingdom of God on earth and perfect society as a Christian society, and then Jesus will return. So millennium refers to this 1,000-year reign of Christ and his kingdom on earth. So when you say post-millennial, that means we believe Christ will come after a 1,000-year reign of Christianity on the earth. Premillennialism said Christ is going to return and then establish the reign of himself on earth. But Doug Wilson is talking like a post-millennialist. Like,
I think he would be.
Yeah. I don't know if he would, but that's what he sounds like. And it's just, it's such a dramatic shift in posture from what a lot of American Christianity has been since, the last 150 years. And it's kind of jarring and striking that that's finding appeal at it's just weird. And that there's so many other people within the MAGA movement who are decidedly premillennial.
Yeah.
And yet they're all finding common cause, which is weird. Okay, here's the other thing I wonder. This is a form of fundamentalism, right? It's strict fundamentalism. Because when he says that he wishes this town were Christian and that this state was Christian and the country was Christian, whole world's Christian, like on one level I can go, okay, yeah, but how? Right? How does this town become Christian? And I think his movement argues it's going to become Christian when Christians take over the levers and offices of power and impose Christian values and impose Christian laws and impose Christian structures. I would say the way a town becomes Christian is by the people of Christ loving their neighbors so sacrificially and so fully that the way of Christ becomes so appealing that others want to join the way. Right? They're attracted into it. It's not from the top down, it's from the bottom up. But when he's going with this top down posture, I think part of the appeal of that, it's a very fundamentalist appeal, is as American society becomes increasingly complicated and difficult to navigate and pluralistic, there's a lot of people out there who are going, can I just please stop thinking so much? Can someone else make all these hard decisions for me? And I'll tell you the thing, and this is going to make some of our listeners upset. I'm going to warn you up front. I think what tipped this movement into the accelerated growth it's now seeing is the fact that we've reached a point in American society where a significant number of people are questioning the most basic organizing principle of every human society throughout history. And that is, what does it mean to be male and female? When you get to a society that cannot answer that question simply, it's going to make people lose their minds. And they're like, okay, we're at a point now where we don't even know what it means to be a man or a woman. And people are seeing that impacting their children in schools and teenagers and like this whole movement now. And it's causing a lot more people to run to the safe harbor of these fundamentalist movements that are saying to them, not only will I tell you exactly what a man is and a woman is, I'm going to tell you exactly what roles they're supposed to have in society. I'm going to tell you exactly what offices they can have. I'll tell you exactly how men and women should function in every household and business and government office. We will take all the ambiguity out of this complicated society and you can exhale again and relax. That's very appealing to people when the culture has gone so far off of its definitions and moorings that we don't even know the basics anymore. And in a weird way, I would argue the extreme rhetoric of the left has fueled people running to the extreme craziness on the right that you see in a Doug Wilson. Yeah, and I don't know how that ends. I don't know how you
usually not well.
That.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, we got this polarization. We're in this cultural moment where people have given up on debate and reasoned discourse and civility and humanizing the other side. And so kind of extreme views like this get a larger hearing because it's like, it's not that we're just going to, make iterative changes and slowly influence people to maybe have, the country reflect our values a little more, or like you said, be so winsome that people, come to Christ or give Christianity a second look. No, this is sort of like, hey, we're going to take over. Eventually, we're going to hoist a Christian flag over the White House. And so it is appealing for that reason. And I'll say this, Doug Wilson is practicing what he preaches. He's out there creating his own little kingdom. He's got churches that he's planting, businesses in town, a publishing house, sprawling campus. And so people see that and go, this guy's doing something. He's actually...
Well, yeah. What's interesting about what he's doing is he's an institution builder.
Yep.
And so, he's not a spring chicken. And when he's no longer around, this movement will continue because he has effectively built the institutions to perpetuate it. There have been other movements that are so almost cult-like in their focus on the charismatic leader that when the leader disappears, the thing kind of just dissipates. I think that might well happen with MAGA once Donald Trump is out of the picture. He's not an institution builder. He's just an institution destroyer. So I'm not sure MAGA has built the enduring institutions to keep going as a political and cultural movement, but Christian nationalism has. And Doug Wilson represents that. He's not a dummy. He knows what he's doing.
He's very media savvy too.
Yes.
He's got a knack for obviously saying controversial things that get people talking. He's got a flair for the dramatic. I remember a few years ago, he had this video where he was giving this talk on a couch that's in the middle of a field, and the couch is on fire, and the flames are creeping closer and closer to him, and he's sitting there smoking a cigar. So he's got this whole macho thing, and he's very, even though he's got to be like 70, he understands the media landscape, and he's working it.
He is working it. And my hunch is he's probably surrounded by a lot of very savvy young men who know how to work social media.
Get the tech.
Exactly. It's a movement that's going to draw a lot of the... It will be interesting what ends up happening. I mean, I don't want to predict scandals, but like these kinds of highly patriarchal movements often manifest horrible abuses.
And there have already been some scandals. Yeah. But in some ways, they're, if you take the Trump tactic where you just shrug off scandals, sometimes they don't really affect you, or at least your core movement.
Well, and the argument, the way they immunize themselves to these scandals is they might say, yeah, these terrible things may well have happened. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And what we're trying to do here is save the culture from its inevitable decline, slouching towards Gomorrah, as Bork said many years ago. And if
that's
we
Yeats originally, but
if we don't succeed, then the secularists and the LGBTQ, the progressives, all those are going to be the ones that take over all of America, and then everyone's in huge trouble. So we're going to turn a blind eye to some of these abuses because the overall mission is so much more important that we can't get sidelined.
The barbarians at the gate are so dangerous.
Exactly. And that's how they end up squashing the dissent over abuses that may happen in their midst. So it's unfortunate. I obviously am no fan of this, both as an American and as a Christian. I find it abhorrent. And it is scary to me that there are officials in the Trump administration, incredibly important positions of power, that do not believe in the Constitution, that do not believe in pluralism, that do not believe in democracy. I don't know why. And the irony that this is coming from the end of the political spectrum that wraps itself in the flag and says the Constitution was inspired by Jesus. Like, why they can't see these contradictions, I don't get. Like, how can you say God gave us the Constitution and then put someone in charge of the whole military who doesn't believe in the Constitution? That's insane to me. But who says contradictions?
My hunch is, though, if you sat down with Pete Hegseth, he probably doesn't even understand or couldn't articulate the tenets of Doug Wilson's theology.
Well, that's a problem too. Like,
that's a huge
problem. You're saying he's either dumb or evil. I don't want a dumb or evil person in charge of the Defense Department.
I think he likes his vibe. He's like, he's a macho dude who is into Jesus. And I mean, that's my read of it. But it's still scary that he would cozy up to this kind of guy with these kind of ideas, 100%.
And okay, last rant. I think all of the problems we're seeing in government right now, at least in Washington, land at the feet of Congress. Because there is no Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth if the Senate doesn't approve him.
Right. Yep.
Right. So, and I know for a fact that there are senators, including Republican senators, who see this problem, who recognize that he is unfit and unqualified to serve as defense secretary, but they won't do anything about it because they're more focused on saving their own hide in the next election than they are in doing what's right for the country or what's even constitutional. So blame President Trump all you want, blame Pete Hegseth, blame Doug Wilson. At the end of the day, it's Congress's responsibility to prevent these kinds of people from having power, people who don't believe in the Constitution. And they didn't fulfill their duty. So I 100% blame Congress for this and many, 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 many other things. And then we get into a deeper levels. Okay, well, why do we end up with the senators and congressional leaders that we have? That's another systemic issue that should be addressed. But Congress, do your job.
Yeah. Although Hegseth is pretty good looking. He's a pretty good looking dude. I'm confident enough in my masculinity to admit that.
Okay.
So that's...
I don't know. Man looks at the appearance. I look at the heart.
You look at the heart. Good, Skye.
Uh-huh.
Apparently not everyone does. Maybe
All
that's
right.
how he skated through. All right, let's move on. All right. Okay. This is a real shift. Okay. From that story. This is a New York Times story about the emotional labor of mankeeping. Is that kind of like zookeeping? I don't know.
Is that like manscaping? Because
No.
I find that emotional. I got a lot of work to do there.
I got less and less manscaping to do, on the top of my head.
Wow.
But all right, here's the subtitle. As male social circles shrink, female partners say they have to meet more social and emotional needs. So basically, they quote a whole bunch of psychologists and therapists that talk about how their male clients rarely open up to anyone except their girlfriends or their wives, and then their partners become their unofficial therapists doing all the emotional labor. I don't know what's wrong with this. Is this bad? I thought this is how it's supposed to be.
I read the article and I don't know. I kind of think this is a load of bull.
Oh, well, that just means that you're part of the problem.
I know. Okay, so here's one thing. In the article, it says that there was a survey in 20. Don't worry, this is not the end of the episode. There's actually plenty more. But to listen to the rest, you need to be a Holy Post Plus subscriber. So head over to holypost.com/SkyePod and sign up for just $5 a month. Not only will you get uninterrupted episodes of the SkyePod, which means you'll never have to hear this dumb announcement again, but you'll also get access to everything else at Holy Post Plus, including episodes of Getting Schooled by Caitlin Chess, bonus interviews, live streams, the Holy Post Book Club, exclusive merchandise, and a whole bunch more. And you'll get the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you're supporting our work of creating smart, pro-neighbor Christian content. So head over to holypost.com/SkyePod and subscribe today.